Hi, world history folk. We are working on how did the Roman Empire fall apart, and I've got you doing this assignment investigate. So if you've got this video open, you've already found the assignment, and it's open here. So there's two things you want to have open. You want to have two tabs open. You want to have this Google Doc open first, and you want to have your PDF open. So I got my Google Doc here. And I come back and I go and I open up my PDF. All right, pause at any time you need to. I'm just going to be going through this. You keep up. You pause when you need to. You type in what you need to type in. Split screen, whatever works for you. All right. Now, don't freak out when you look at the PDF because I'm not having you read the first 3 pages. That's all teacher stuff. You don't need that there. All right. So we're going to start with document A, which we already did yesterday. So hopefully you remember this. We were looking at this chart and we were looking at, it says Roman emperors. It tells you the emperor, the years that they were in charge, that they reigned, and then the cause of the death. And if we noticed, most of them were assassinated. A lot of them dying, a lot of them getting killed. And so we put in for document A, the emperors were getting murdered. Okay. Now, this is where you're going to pause. I'm not going to fill this column in, okay? Because this is your opinion. All right, your opinion. How big of a deal is this problem that the emperors were getting murdered consistently in ancient Rome? Okay, so they had like 19 or 20 different emperors in a 20-year span. They were getting assassinated, committing suicide, getting killed in battle, dying of plague, just like boom, 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 die, die, die. It was not a good deal for Rome. But you tell me how big of a problem that is. If you think it's not a big deal and you're like, man, those emperors had to go anyway, might as well get rid of them. And you give it a 2. Just explain why. If you think that's a big deal, too much chaos, not enough stability, then you're going to give it, a higher number. All right. So you fill in this part here. Mr. Boatwright's not filling that in for you. All right. Now, what you're doing next is on your PDF, you scroll down to document B. All right. And we read this. Okay. It's an excerpt of the ancient book Concerning Military Matters by the Roman historian Vegeta. I don't know, something around 450. So it's written by a Roman historian. It's probably going to be about the military, okay? Since that's the title of the book. Before the year 400 CE, foot soldiers wore breastplates and helmets. It's like armor, helmets, right? But when, because of negligence and laziness, parade ground drills, that means like practice drills, were abandoned, the customary armor began to seem heavy since their soldiers rarely ever wore it. Therefore, they first asked the emperor to set aside the breastplates and then the helmets. So our soldiers fought the Goths without any protection for chest and head and were often beaten by archers, bow and arrows. Although there were many disasters which led to the loss of the great cities, no one tried to restore breastplates and helmets to the infantry. Thus, it happened that troops in battle exposed to wounds because they have no armor think about running and not about fighting. Okay? I don't even think you need to read this last part, all right? What's going on that's bad in the Roman Empire, okay? Think about it. What is the bad thing? What do they not have? Okay. The army didn't wear enough armor. Okay. Yeah, they didn't wear enough armor. Okay. Said there can be little doubt that the weakness of the late Roman army was largely due to the eventual failure to enforce regular conscription, which means they didn't force people into the army as much anymore. The exempted categories were numerous. That means a lot of people were able to get out of being a soldier. Hosts of senators, bureaucrats, clergymen were entitled to avoid the draft. And among other groups who escaped were cooks and bakers and slaves. So their army got weaker too. And the army got weaker. Okay, tell me how big of a problem that is. All right, scale of 1 to 10. Rome having a weak army. Is that a big deal? Not a big deal? Pause. Give it a number. That's your opinion, remember. All right, I'm going to bounce down to C here. Scroll down over here. C. Now, a lot of people get all bent out of shape because they're like, Mr. Boatwright, this doesn't say anything. It's just a map. Okay, when you look at a map, one of the first things to look for is the title. what's the title say? It says foreign invasions of the Roman Empire. Well, we know what an invasion is. That's when people try to come in and take over. Foreign just means they're from another country. So these other groups, so I've got arrows and lines and arrows pointing into the Roman Empire. Those are these different groups attacking Rome. So the Huns, the Vandals, the Ostrogoths, the Vandals down here, the Visigoths, okay, Angles and the Saxons up here. So they are getting attacked from all over, okay, for consistently for like 50 years, just attacked. Okay. So what am I going to put in here? They were being attacked constantly from all sides. Okay. How big of a problem is that? Now you might be like, well, that's not a big problem, except that their army was getting weaker at exactly the wrong time. Or maybe you think to yourself, that is a huge problem. There's no way you can defend that much land, that much space when you don't have, they don't have cars, they don't have planes. So moving from one place to another takes a long time. So maybe that's the problem. All right. Scroll on down to D. Remember, you pause, you put in your opinion, scale of 1 to 10, how important it is. Hi, Mr. Link. I'm doing a video. You're on my video now. All right. Document D. All right. This is an excerpt about an Asian tribe called the Huns from Roman history by the Roman historian. Can't pronounce the name. Marcellinus. Sure. In 380 CE. So if I look at the map here, the Huns were this group of people up here attacking the Romans. Okay. Here's how they describe the Huns. The Romans describe them as the Huns exceed any definition of savagery. They have compact, sturdy limbs and thick necks. Although they have the shape of human beings, they are so wild in their way of life that they have no need of fire or pleasant tasting food, but eat the roots of uncultivated plants and the half raw flesh of all sorts of animals. This they place between their thighs and on the backs of their horses and so warm it a little. Huns are never sheltered by buildings, but they roam freely in the mountains and woods, learning from their earliest childhood to endure freezing cold, hunger, and thirst. These guys seem hardcore. All right. Huns are not well adapted to battle on foot, but are almost glued to their horses, which are certainly handy but also ugly. Like refugees, all without permanent settlements, homes, laws, or fixed way of life, they are always on the move with their wagons in which they leave. Like unthinking animals, they are completely ignorant of the difference between right and wrong. Fired with the overwhelming desire for seizing the property of others, these swift-moving and ungovernable people make their destructive way amid the pillage and slaughter of those who live around them. All right. So basically, this guy's just like, the Huns are terrible. They're the worst. They're attacking us all the time. They're awful. They make our lives miserable. Okay. So I'm going to go here. The Huns are terrible and are constantly attacking the Romans. Okay. Tell me how bad that is. You think that that's the worst thing in the world? Do you think they're the main problem? Put in your opinion over here. Okay. Remember, scale of 1 to 10. How important was this problem to the fall of Rome? All right. I go to document E. Hang in there. You're doing great. So this is an excerpt of a historical text written by Priscus, Roman ambassador to the Huns. Okay. He's reporting a conversation that he had with a former Roman citizen whose land had been conquered by the Huns. He considered his new life better than his old life among the Romans, and the reasons he gave were as follows. The condition of Roman subjects in times of peace is worse than war. Taxes are very severe, and unprincipled men inflict injuries on others. A wealthy lawbreaker is not punished for his injustice, while a poor man undergoes the legal penalty. The climax of misery is to have to pay in order to obtain justice. So they are saying that the poor are treated worse than the rich. The rich can get away with breaking the laws because they just bribe judges to get them off the hook. He said, so this Roman citizen said, that the laws and constitution of the Romans were fair, but deplored that the governors, not possessing the spirit of former generations, were ruining the state. So he's saying the leaders of Rome are corrupt, they're messed up. He's saying honestly that life in Rome under Rome was worse than under the Huns. Okay, so I'm going to go here to document E. Right, the rich are favored over the poor, and the leaders are corrupt in Rome. Okay, how big of a problem is that? How big of a problem is that to you? Do you think that that's going to lead to the Roman Empire collapsing, the Roman Empire falling? The rich are favored over the poor, and the leaders are corrupt in Rome. Okay. Last document. Woo! Go to document F. This is written by a historian about 250 years ago named Edward Gibbon. The History and the Decline of the Fall of the Roman Empire. Pretty famous history book you probably never heard of, but 6 volume set all about the Roman Empire. Right. In the second year of the reign of Valens, the Roman world was shaken by a violent and destructive earthquake. The shores of the Mediterranean were left dry by a sudden retreat of the sea, but the tide soon returned with the weight of an immense flood, which was severely felt on the coasts of Sicily, Greece, and Egypt. So that's areas all around the Roman Empire. He's describing a tsunami, right? So an earthquake caused, and then tidal waves flooded different places. 50,000 persons had lost their lives in the flood in the city of Alexandria alone. That's in Egypt. This calamity astonished and terrified the subjects of Rome, and their fearful vanity was disposed to see a connection between the symptoms of a declining empire and a sinking world. So they were already, the Roman Empire was not doing well, and then this tsunami hit, and people were like, oh, this is just adding to how terrible things are, okay? More important in initiating the process of decline, says this source, okay, a modern textbook, was a series of plagues that swept over the empire, which brought diseases from southern Asia to new areas like the Mediterranean, where no resistance had been established, even to contagions such as the measles. The resulting diseases decimated the population. So plague came to Rome and destroyed their population a couple different times. The population of Rome decreased from 1 million to 250,000 people. So if you think COVID was bad, these plagues and diseases in Rome wiped out almost 75% of the population. Economic life worsened in consequence. Recruitment of troops became more difficult, so the empire was increasingly reduced to hiring Germanic soldiers to guard its frontiers. The need to pay troops added to the demand on the state's budget, so just as declining production cut into tax revenue. So they had to pay people to be in their army because their own people were dying from the plague, right? Taxes had to go up. It was a huge mess because of, first, this earthquake, natural disasters, and plagues. So that's what we're going to put for F. Okay, natural disasters and plagues. Tell me how big a deal you think this is in causing the Roman Empire to fall. Scale of 1 to 10. You tell me how important it is. Now, what I want you to think about when you're done with this is what seems to, there's one down here, and you're not going to need to do this page, okay? So ignore page 2. But what I want you to think of, okay, what do you think were the 2 biggest problems that Rome had that ultimately led it to being conquered and taken over and being destroyed in the year 476, okay? So which of these, pick 2, the 2 that you think were the biggest factor in them crumbling and being destroyed, okay? Make sure you have this done. Click turn in when you're done with it. And I'll see you in class because we're probably in class right now. All right. See ya.